Hi there. Today I'm taking a look at a sparkling wine from the south of France. So I have here a Cremant de Limoux and this is Sieur Grande Cuvee 1531 Brut. They do also make a rosé version of this. So, as I say, we're in Languedoc-Roussillon, near the town of Carcassonne, the historic monument, the sort of walled town, in an area with various cooling influences from the Mediterranean and from altitude. Some of the vineyards are up to 500 metres above sea level, where white wines can be grown for white table wine and sparkling wine because it's cool enough there. Traditionally, the area has grown a variety called Mauzac, or Blanquette as they call it. So the traditional sparkling wine of the area is something which is made by a method called the method ancestrale, and it's made from Mauzac, so that's Blanquette de Limoux. I mean, it's an area with a very long history of grape growing. I mean, the Greeks came to this part of the world in the 5th century BC and brought vines with them, so the viticulture is well established. The wine is labelled as Cuvée 1531 because in 1531 it's claimed that the Benedictines at the monastery at Saint Hilaire produced the first sparkling wine ever. I'm not quite sure how that's possible, as this sort of about a century before the Englishman Sir Kenelm Digby worked out how to strengthen glass sufficiently to hold a fully sparkling wine. So presumably we're talking about a wine that's lightly sparkling, and as a result of fermentation restarting in spring once the wine warms up after a cool winter, leaving a wine in a sort of a barrel, or I don't know, a goat skin or something like that, just lightly sparkling. That's my assumption anyway. So that's the historical side of things. In terms of the modern, the area more recently has capitalised on the fact that actually there's some quite old Chardonnay vines growing in the area, so there's some good quality stock to work with. There's been a move towards making bottle fermented sparkling wines with the traditional method, as would be used in Champagne, and making that from Chardonnay, Chenin Blanc, Pinot Noir, varieties like that. And in 1990, the Crémant de Limoux appellation was introduced to allow this. Now the Sieur are actually a co-operative. They were started in 1946 as the Société des Producteurs de Blanquette de Limoux, and in the 1990s they changed their name to Sieur. They're quite a large operation. They've got just over 1,800 hectares between them. And this particular wine is a sort of a quality cuvee. The label says that it's principally Chardonnay with a little Chenin and some Pinot Noir in it. I've seen notes elsewhere suggesting that there's some Mauzac in the blend. That's not what the label says. Possibly a previous iteration of this wine may have had some Mauzac in there. I've also seen notes that suggest some of the base wine might have been aged or fermented in oak. I haven't seen anything to support that more recently, but it's a possibility. The other quality side of things is that the wine then ages for 2 years in bottle prior to dégorgement. And 2 years is a reasonable amount of time to allow the yeast to break down, and that helps to ensure that the sparkle in the wine is fixed, because what happens is that the yeast break down by a process called autolysis, releasing sugars and proteins into the wine that give the wine slightly more body and enable smaller bubbles to be formed because of the influence it has on surface tension. And those bubbles, therefore, instead of frothing really quickly, rise consistently in a bead, as you will see rising, hopefully you can see, rising from the centre of the glass here. And this, I've had this poured for 5 or 6 minutes now, and it's still rising with quite an amount of energy there. And a very fine bead as well. So enough about the wine. Let's have a look at it and see what we make of it. First of all, the colour. The colour is a pale yellow, possibly a tiny greenish touch there, not significantly so. As I've said already, fine bead rising, so not sort of foaming and the foam dying back. This is consistently giving us a bubble. The aromas are slightly contrasting. You've got quite a sort of a green apple, green pear, almost slightly sort of spritzy note to the fruit. There's a liveliness to that, and there's a lemon lime freshness as well. But also, there's a sort of a toasty yeastiness, more toasty than sort of bready brioche sort of notes. But that is that's the yeast autolysis notes coming through as flavour. Possibly it has something to do with a little bit of oak aging or oak fermentation for the base wine, but I think it's more likely to be the yeastiness. So let's have a taste, shall we? It's a lovely, fresh, light, crisp. It's got lovely crispness. It's actually quite mouth-watering, not to the extent of a champagne, but because of the lightness of the fruit, the lemoniness, there's almost a sherbety nature to it. And that's in contrast to the fact that actually the yeastiness is giving a roundness to the back palate and a bit of weight that's sort of, you know, making it light to medium bodied rather than just light bodied. It's adding some complexity, it's adding a bit of weight. But then again, the freshness comes through to the finish, and you get this lovely long lemony, slightly almondy note. I suppose that's the yeast development flavours coming through again. So really enjoyable fresh wine, not the most complex in the world, but offering slightly more than a basic than a basic sparkling wine, with some lovely finesse in terms of its bead, but without the cost of a champagne. So really well worth having a look at. I find that very enjoyable. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope if you've enjoyed, you'll press like or share the video with your friends, and hopefully you'll join us again. Bye now.